Yeah, so start off with the performance by the Moon today. I thought it was an outstanding job, primarily in the path of totality. But anyway, dang, what day is it? Hey, Brooks, how are you?
Excellent, Coach.
Good. So, speaking of underwhelming, that's probably how I would describe our practice today. I think our guys, we had that day off on Sunday. We talked a lot about was distractions. You know, I mean, you could see the distractions that were present right at the beginning of practice. We got the whole eclipse thing going, and I thought it took them a while to kind of they kind of eased into it. I'd describe it as workmanlike. You know, it's one of those deals where the level of maturity of our team right now is not one that we can back off, and I think that we'll use this as a learning opportunity, both from a coaching standpoint and a player's perspective. And so we've got to be better tomorrow. And the good news is, I think we'll have their attention. They'll be in full pads, and as again, just kind of that bonus Tuesday. I think our discussions with the young men on Sunday went well. You know, we've kind of got a handful of guys that we know are going to play. Well, we've got them up and ready to go, starting with the offensive side of the ball. Zach Red and Connor Wood on the offensive line are in the two deep, and so we'll try to get those guys in situationally when the opportunity presents itself, so that if there's a long-term injury or even a short-term injury, they get an opportunity to go. And so that'll be kind of part of our discussion each week in terms of the rotation. It's how we're going to get those guys involved. At tailback, you'll have Troy Anderson and Tyrell Burgess. I think Tyrell will have some packages that he'll be involved in. Feel like Troy's capable of starting to assimilate the entire playbook and do some things for us, so those guys will go. I think you'll also see Tyrell heavily involved in our kick return game. And then at wide receiver, Lance McCutcheon will be up and ready to go. And then we've got a couple guys that will keep them warm. You know, we've just got to kind of see how things go. Ryan Davis being one of those guys at the tight end position, I think that has done some really nice things. But with Sully and Curtis Amos there, and with Wilson Brock coming back to the tight end position, we've got a little bit of depth there. So, you know, there's going to be a handful of guys that are similar to that. On the defensive side of the ball, you know, I think we're going to have to roll a little bit with Elu. You know, with Foe being out for a while you know, he had some disciplinary things that we're dealing with him, and we'll get through that with him, and then he'll be ready to go. And then he also, you know, has a little hand issue right now, so I think Elu's played himself into a position where he's in the rotation for the first game for sure. And then we'll have in the back end, Tyrell Thomas will start out with being our second boundary corner. And so he'll be behind Bryce Alley to start the season. And so that's kind of, I think, the guys that are for sure up. And you never say never with these young kids. And we've got a long way to go in a long, grueling season. And so we do have a handful of guys on both sides of the ball that will kind of be in that keep them warm mode. And we'll have to make a decision as we get through the season on that.
What were some of the tough decisions on Saturday night, Sunday?
You know, I don't know that there were that many that were really tough. I mean, I think always having honest conversations with people is an important part of this job, and I know I always appreciated it, Coach, even if it wasn't what I wanted to hear, telling me the truth and being direct with me, and so I think that was what we tried to do. And I think a lot of these guys, when you go through as many days as we've been together, they kind of get the pitch count down a little bit, and they can do the math. And so I don't know that there were a lot of big surprises. I don't think there was anything that was really like come out of left field. So you know, we'll just kind of keep plugging away and see where things go.
Where does Tucker Rovig maybe fall on this?
Well, Tucker's a keep warm guy. I mean, I think you know, we talked a little bit about this about a week ago, and I talked about, you know, there's two things that go into this equation. One being what's best for the young man, and one what's best for the program. And you know, obviously, I think it's best for any young man if they can have that year to kind of assimilate to college life and absorb what it's like to be a Division I student athlete. And in Tucker's case, I think you know, he's asserted himself as a guy that if we had to have him play, he could play. And we're going to knock on wood and hope that doesn't happen. And if it's a helmet comes off or we need to get out of a game, I think Brady will help us do that. But if it's a long-term deal, then we've got to make a decision and probably roll Tucker in that situation.
Check, you know, keep warm or definitely?
Yeah, I think he's a keep warm guy. Okay. You know, one of the reasons why I'd say that is, I mean, I know he flashed and made a bunch of plays in the scrimmage, and he's done that consistently through his time here in fall camp. But you know, Michael Jobman's a guy that's having him back, and he's shown me some things. I think he's ready to be the two there at the buck position, and we've also have Kyle Finch, so you've got enough depth there. But we're definitely going to keep him warm. You know, I mean, we had a couple guys today that we held out of practice at inside linebacker, and all of a sudden you're like, well, we better get Chad ready to go at will, just because that's the way it goes sometimes. And so I think he'll be heavily involved in our game planning and travel with us and suit up for home games, and hopefully we can redshirt him. But I think he's another young man that if we get into a pinch, he'd be a guy that we'd roll.
Can you talk about that linebacker depth chart and kind of how that's balancing out? Is it trying to get the best guys on the field right now?
Yeah, I think that's always the goal. And there's certain guys that have different skill sets. You look at Chad, who's played on the edge primarily throughout his time here with us, but was an inside linebacker in high school. And so I don't think it's that foreign to him. He's got a good nose for the ball. Kind of right now at the inside positions, you look at really Lucas and Josh have kind of solidified themselves as the ones there at the Mike and Will spots, and then Jake and Walker Cozy have taken most of the 2 reps. But if we get an injury, there's always the ability for us to slide Mac back inside because Baloo's had a really good camp. And so in our base stuff, I think it can be interesting. I think there's also some things that we may be able to do with our safeties. We have some big physical safeties with Bryson McCabe and Braden Conkle, and with the emergence of JoJo Henderson and the experience that Kahari brings, I think there could be some things that we could do in our nickel package where we can get some guys on the edge that maybe have the ability to bring some juice in the pass rush, and we could plug one of those safeties in at the boundary inside linebacker position as kind of our dime backer in our nickel package.
What do you think JoJo brings to this team? A new guy, a transfer guy. What does he bring to this team, and what's his role going to be these first couple games?
Well, one of the things that he brings in my mind is that he brings a lot of urgency. I mean, that kid came here to play. He did not come here to redshirt. He did not come here to sit behind people. From the moment he arrived on campus back in July, he's been in Coach Orfeh and Coach Reisinger's offices and bugging those guys about getting to know the scheme, and took a class and did well in that, and it was not an easy one, and so that showed me that he's got the right level of commitment to his academics. He's a very likable kid. He's not a real vocal guy. But I think he's earned the respect of us as coaches and of his teammates by how he's conducted himself and how he's prepared. And right now he's rolling with the ones. We got the other piece is who's going to be the nickel. How do some of these things fit in? Because there's 4 safeties back there I like right now, and so a lot of those things depend on maybe the opponent that we're playing and how the game plan best suits one of those individuals. And so I think JoJo, like I said, has brought a tremendous amount of depth to our back end.
Talk about what you liked, didn't like now that you got the chance to see the tape from Saturday.
Yeah, well, I thought it's kind of first impressions usually probably pretty accurate.
Okay.
I felt like there was one play in particular that I think changed the entire flow of the scrimmage for our offense, and I think that speaks a little bit to our lack of maturity, and that was the fumble on Cassis. We are going right down the field on him. I think there's no doubt in my mind we're going to go in and score, and I think that is going to have kind of a result of that is going to be a big day for the offense. Well, you saw in scrimmage 1, we got off to a great start and it kind of snowballed. We have to have the ability to be able to pull ourselves out of those things. Rebound. I mean, how you respond is everything, and so I think it took us a long time to kind of respond from that, and that was discouraging a little bit. And so that maybe was one of the takeaways that I had after watching the film. I was like, this is interesting, because had we not turned the ball over there, I think we probably would have had a really big day on offense, and we still did some good things. I mean, Chris really actually had some pretty good numbers. I think with the exception of the last ball, made pretty good decisions. I think he forced that one in the tight red zone at the end, and was productive with his legs, and we ran the ball well. So there were some good things that we did, but I just felt like there was a little bit of a rhythm that was lacking. Wanted to see a little bit more in and out of the huddle, a little bit more crisp communication. Some of the penalty things were a little bit sloppy at times, and as we get this close to game 1, you don't want to see those, so you're hoping that those are eliminated. And I think it was a little bit of a lack of focus, especially after that first turnover.
I wanted to follow up with you on Jake McFetridge as it relates to maybe his experience and the learning curve with him, because didn't play a whole lot in high school, was a baseball player, and now he's figures to be a key component of that offense. Yeah,
I think it's a tribute to Jake's work ethic, and I really think that he's really happy here at Montana State. I think he's got some great friends. Those offensive line guys are always kind of a tight-knit group anyway, and I think those guys have really encouraged him. And even when maybe he was having a hard time learning a scheme or gaining a little bit of weight or understanding exactly what the coaches wanted, and those guys kind of hung in there with him. And now, even though he's only a sophomore, he's kind of a little bit more of a veteran on that group. And so I think he's earned his opportunity and worked himself into it. And like I said, I think that says a lot about his work ethic.